They said the carnival closed years ago, but every night, when the fog rolls in, the music starts again. The rides move on their own. The lights flicker in patterns that seem to breathe. And if you listen closely, you can still hear the laughter of people who never left. When journalist Claire Harlow breaks in to uncover its secret, she finds more than a ghost story. She finds an audience waiting for one last show, and she's already part of it. The letter arrived on a damp Tuesday morning, slipping through the mail slot like a whisper from a past best left forgotten. Evelyn Gray had been sorting through the mundane clutter of her apartment when the cream-colored envelope caught her eye, its edges frayed, the paper thick and textured, as if it had weathered the passage of decades. No return address was present, only her name, scrawled in an elegant, looping script that sent a shiver crawling up her spine. She hesitated before breaking the seal, the air in the room suddenly heavy, as if time itself had paused to watch. Inside was a single sheet, yellowed with age, the ink faded but legible. The words were simple, yet carried a weight that pressed down on her chest. The carnival returns. It awaits you. Come where the shadows dance and the music never dies. Your place is reserved, no signature, no explanation, just the chilling invitation. Evelyn's mind raced back to the fragmented pieces of her childhood, the whispered stories her grandmother, Edith Gray, had told in hushed tones near the fireplace. Tales filtered through the haze of fear and secrecy. The carnival that vanished a century ago, a ghostly place of cursed joy and terror, the place her grandmother had fled, never to speak of again. She felt the pull immediately, a magnetic force tugging at her soul, stronger than any logic or fear. It was as if the letter had awakened a dormant part of her, a legacy she had tried to bury beneath years of mundane normalcy. That afternoon, Evelyn packed a small bag, her hands trembling as she included a worn photograph of her grandmother, faded and creased. Her eyes filled with a sorrow Evelyn had never understood until now. The road stretched before her like a dark ribbon, winding toward the unknown. As she drove away from the city, a fog thickened around her car, swallowing the trees and blurring the horizon. The radio crackled with static, the usual hum of music replaced by distant echoes, laughter, carnival music, the faint clinking of glass bottles. She blinked, and the sounds vanished, leaving only the oppressive silence. Through the mist, shapes began to materialize. The skeletal frame of a Ferris wheel loomed ahead, its rusted spokes creaking softly in the still air. Tattered banners fluttered like ghostly flags, and the faint glow of flickering bulbs outlined the twisted carousel horses frozen mid-gallop. Evelyn's breath caught, her heart pounding like a drum beat in the quiet. The carnival was real. It was here. Memories surged unbidden, her grandmother's frantic escape, the warnings never fully explained, the legacy of fear that had shadowed her family for generations. She gripped the steering wheel tighter, the road ahead uncertain but impossible to resist. As twilight deepened, the carnival's silhouette swallowed by the mist, Evelyn felt the first true taste of the terror and cursed joy that awaited her. The letter was no mere invitation, it was a summons, and the carnival would not release its new guest so easily. Her journey had begun, and there was no turning back now. The mist thickened around her as the ancient carnival breathed awake once more, a nightmare reborn from the shadows of time. I stepped through the rusted iron gates, the creak echoing into the heavy, still air like a long-forgotten warning. The carnival lay before me, a sprawling graveyard of memories and faded joy, draped in shadows and the slow decay of time. Tent flaps hung in tatters, their colors bleached by the sun and torn by the relentless wind. The scent of old wood and rusted metal filled my nostrils, mingled with an undercurrent of something darker, something like forgotten sorrow. Every step I took seemed swallowed by silence, yet the silence itself felt alive, watching and waiting. The ground beneath my boots was cracked and littered with leaves and debris, but somewhere beneath it all, the echoes of laughter and screams lingered, as if the carnival's spirit had never truly left. I moved cautiously, drawn deeper into the heart of the deserted grounds. My fingers brushed against a crumbling wall plastered with layers of peeling posters. My breath hitched when I recognized the faded letters, the jagged font spelling out a name I never expected to see here, my own. Evelyn Gray beneath the cracked surface, images of twisted clowns with grotesque smiles and carnival attractions warped by time stared back at me. The ink was blurred, faded, but the letters were unmistakable, my name, printed like a brand, as though this cursed place had claimed me before I even arrived. A cold shiver slid down my spine. How could this be? I had thought I was just following a ghost story, a fragment of family history that had no hold over me. But the carnival was telling me otherwise. It was calling me home, and not as a visitor, but as one of its own. A sudden rustle made me whip my head around, heart hammering in my chest. But there was nothing, just the shifting shadow of a torn banner fluttering weakly in the breeze. Or perhaps something more sinister, something watching from the edges of sight. The carnival breathed around me, a living nightmare cloaked in forgotten delight. I swallowed hard, trying to steady my shaking hands. The stories my grandmother whispered in fragments, the warnings she left wrapped in riddles and silence, all pressed down on me now like a weight I could not shrug off. The legacy of fear was real, it was here, and it was mine. The sun dipped lower, casting long fingers of twilight that stretched like grasping hands over the decayed grandeur. The colors faded into murky shadows, the carnival's grotesque silhouette twisting into shapes that seemed to pulse with a dark life of their own. The mist began to seep back into the grounds, curling around the broken rides and empty booths like a slow, suffocating breath. I forced myself to take another step, each movement heavy with the knowledge that I had crossed a threshold. There was no turning back, not now. The carnival had summoned me, and it had already claimed my name. The echoes of a faded past whispered through the night, and I was listening. Turning to leave would be to deny the truth, but staying meant facing the legacy that had haunted my family for a century. The carnival was no longer just a story. It was a place of living nightmares, and I was trapped within its cruel embrace. With a deep breath, I pressed onward into the darkness, the weight of the past settling like chains around my soul. Somewhere in the shadows, the carnival barker's twisted smile seemed to flicker and fade, a grotesque welcome to a nightmare that was just beginning. The night was far from over, and the carnival had many secrets left to reveal. I could feel it in the air, in the silence, in the very bones of the place. The legacy of terror was waking, and I was right at its heart. The sun sank behind the horizon, casting long shadows that stretched like fingers across the cracked pavement of the abandoned carnival grounds. Evelyn Gray stood frozen before the skeletal frame of the Ferris wheel, its rusted arms creaking faintly in the cold evening breeze. The broken bulbs along its rim flickered feebly, as if struggling to resist the gathering darkness. Around her, the scent of damp earth mingled with the stale sweetness of long-spilled popcorn and something metallic, sharp enough to prick at her senses. The air was thick with silence, yet beneath it, a distant melody hovered, warped, distorted, and just out of reach. Her lantern's beam wavered as she took a hesitant step forward. The carnival, once a place of joy and laughter, now pulsed with a sinister life of its own. The grotesque attractions, the faded banners, and the peeling paint all seemed to breathe, exhaling a cold breath that whispered secrets she wasn't sure she wanted to hear. As Evelyn moved deeper, the shadows seemed to shift and dance at the edge of her vision. She caught glimpses of figures slipping between tents and behind broken stalls, too quick to be human, too fluid to be mere tricks of the light. Her heart pounded in her chest, a steady drumbeat of fear and fascination. Was she being watched? The sensation prickled her skin, an invisible gaze that made her shoulders stiffen. A soft rustling came from the carousel, its faded horses frozen mid-gallop, their glassy eyes staring blankly into the twilight. The carnival music, faint and warped, rose and fell like a dying heartbeat. Evelyn's breath caught as a whisper curled around her ears, a voice barely audible yet devastatingly clear, her name, Evelyn. She spun around, lantern raised, but found only the mist curling low to the ground, swirling like smoke from some unseen fire. The voices grew low murmurs, laughter twisted into something cruel and sharp. Her mind raced, memories flickering unbidden, her grandmother's frantic escape, the hurried warnings, the half-told stories of an evil lurking beneath the carnival's surface. Suddenly, the world blurred. The edges of her vision shattered like cracked glass, fracturing into shards of past and present. She saw herself, or was it her grandmother, running through these same grounds, eyes wide with terror, the carnival's grotesque amusements melting into nightmare shapes. The carousel horses morphed into snarling beasts, the laughter turning to screams. A cold hand seemed to grip her heart as she stumbled back, breath ragged. The carnival's power was not just in its physical form, but in its ability to twist minds, to ensnare souls in a web of illusions and memories. She was caught in its thrall, pulled deeper with every step. Before her, the tent flaps fluttered in a sudden gust. From within emerged the carnival barker, a grotesque figure clad in tattered finery, his voice a rasping melody that promised joy and escape in equal measure. His cracked smile revealed yellowed teeth, and his eyes gleamed with a predatory light. "Welcome back, Evelyn," he crooned, his words dripping with false warmth. "The carnival has missed you. There's so much to see, so much to feel. Why resist what you were born to embrace?" Evelyn's stomach churned, a mixture of revulsion and an inexplicable pull toward the barker's twisted charisma. She tightened her grip on the lantern, the flame flickering in defiance. "I don't belong here," she whispered, voice trembling but firm. "Oh, but you do," the barker insisted, stepping closer, his shadow stretching long and distorted. "The carnival chooses its own, and it has chosen you." The night deepened around her, the carnival's whispers rising into a chorus of voices that seemed to echo from every corner. Evelyn felt the weight of generations pressing down the legacy of fear, the inheritance of terror. Yet beneath the dread, a stubborn ember of resolve kindled within her. She would not be a victim, not like her grandmother before her. With a shuddering breath, Evelyn turned away from the barker and pressed onward, deeper into the carnival's dark heart. The shadows whispered, the illusions beckoned, and the night stretched endlessly ahead, a tapestry woven from cursed joy and suffocating fear. What awaited her beyond the next tent flap, she could not know. But one thing was certain, the carnival had never truly closed, and neither had the nightmare it promised. Her footsteps echoed hollowly as she disappeared into the mist, the carnival alive around her, watching, waiting. And somewhere, deep within the shifting shadows, a faint, sinister laugh trailed after her, a sound that promised the horrors to come. The night was far from over. The fog hung thick and heavy over the midway, coiling around the rotting wood and twisted metal like a suffocating shroud. I moved forward cautiously, each step muffled by the damp earth beneath my boots, the silence so complete it pressed against my ears like a physical weight. The carnival was alive in a way that defied explanation, though there was no laughter, no music, only the faint, persistent echo of something old and wicked stirring in the shadows. A sudden rasping voice cut through the silence, sharp and brittle as broken glass. "Step right up, Missy. Don't be shy now," it crooned, the words weaving through the mist like a hypnotic melody. The sound sent a spike of cold dread through me. My heart hammered in my chest as I turned toward the source, eyes straining to pierce the dense fog. There, stepping from a warped and peeling tent flap, was the barker. He was grotesque in the most unsettling way, a man, or what had once been a man, twisted by the carnival's dark heart. His face was a mask of exaggerated features, sunken eyes gleaming with an unnatural light that seemed to bore into my very soul. His grin stretched unnervingly wide, revealing uneven, yellowed teeth that caught the faint glow of the dying light. He wore the tattered remains of a once bright carnival coat, sequins dulled and dirt-streaked, his every movement jerky and unnerving, like a marionette on fraying strings. "Welcome to the show, Evelyn," he hissed, his voice dripping with false sweetness that made my skin crawl. "You've come so far, so brave to answer the call. The carnival's waited a long time for you." My breath caught. How did he know my name? My fingers clenched into fists at my sides. "I'm not here for your games," I said, my voice trembling despite my effort to sound steady. "I'm not one of your victims." He chuckled, a sound like dry leaves rustling in a tomb. "Oh, but everyone's a victim here, darling. That's the beauty of it. Joy and terror hand in hand. You can't have one without the other." "You think you can walk away? Ha!" "The carnival doesn't let go, not once it's claimed you." I took a step back, but the ground seemed to shift beneath me, the mist thickening until the world became a swirling blur of shadows and half-seen faces. The barker's voice grew louder, more insistent, wrapping around me like a suffocating cloak. "Come closer. See the wonders. Hear the laughter. Feel the thrill. This is your inheritance, Evelyn, the legacy your grandmother tried to run from but couldn't escape. Will you be the one to break the cycle? Or will you join the chorus of those who dance forever in the carnival's shadow?" His eyes flickered with something darker than a hunger that chilled me to my bones. I shook my head fiercely, forcing myself to stand tall. "I won't be trapped here. Not like her. Not like anyone else." The barker's grin faltered for a heartbeat, replaced by a flicker of something almost human regret, maybe. Then it was gone, swallowed by the carnival's sinister pulse. "We shall see, Evelyn. We shall see," he whispered, stepping back into the mist, his form dissolving into the fog like smoke. The silence returned, but it was heavier now, charged with a terrible promise. I stood alone in the heart of the cursed carnival, the weight of the barker's words settling over me like a dark tide. The carnival was not just a place, it was a force, a living nightmare that fed on fear and hope alike. And I was caught in its web. I clenched my fists, the cold night air biting at my skin. Somewhere deep inside, a fierce flame flickered, a stubborn ember of defiance. I would not let the carnival devour me, I would fight. But as the mist curled and whispered around me, I knew this was only the beginning. The barker's call echoed in my mind, a haunting refrain that promised the carnival would never truly let me go. And I was terrified, but I was ready. The twilight had long since surrendered to night when Evelyn found herself wandering deeper into the labyrinthine sprawl of tents and broken rides. The air was heavy, thick with the scent of mildew and rust, mingling with faint, sweeter notes that reminded her of old wood and stale popcorn. She moved cautiously, the gravel crunching softly beneath her boots, every shadow seeming to twitch with unseen life. A chill wind whispered past, pulling at her dark hair, and in the distance, a faint, flickering light caught her eye. Drawn by a mixture of curiosity and dread, Evelyn slipped toward the glow. The carnival around her seemed to breathe in a slow, unnatural rhythm, the decaying banners fluttering like ghostly flags in an unseen breeze. As she neared, the light resolved into the form of a woman, pale, almost translucent, her figure shimmering like smoke caught in a candle's flicker. Her eyes, bright and wavering, were the first thing Evelyn noticed, twin flames of amber and gold that danced with a fragile, spectral glow. "Evelyn," the figure whispered, her voice barely more than a breath, yet it carried through the still night with unnerving clarity. "You read deeper in than you know." Evelyn's heart jumped. "Who are you?" The woman's lips curved into a faint, knowing smile. "Names have power, but some truths are heavier than names. I am Mara. I was like you once, caught, waiting, hoping." Evelyn's eyes narrowed, a shiver running down her spine. "Waiting for what?" Mara's gaze flickered, shadows playing across her delicate features. "For release, for the curse to break. But the carnival, it never truly lets go. It feeds on hope, twisting it into fear." The words hung between them like smoke, heavy and suffocating. Evelyn swallowed hard, feeling the weight of generations pressing down on her chest. "My grandmother escaped," she said, voice trembling. "She left warnings, but I didn't understand." Mara stepped closer, the air cooling around them. Your grandmother's flight was a reprieve, not freedom. The legacy is bound to your blood. The carnival demands its due every century. You were summoned because the cycle must continue unless you can break it. Evelyn's breath caught. How? Mara's eyes flickered brighter, momentarily casting a warm glow. Listen to the whispers beneath the laughter. See beyond the twisted smiles. The ringmaster's mask hides a broken soul, and his power is tied to the stories left untold. Find the cracks in the carnival's facade. That is where hope flickers, fragile as candlelight. A sudden gust swept through the tents, and Mara's form began to waver, her edges blurring like mist caught in a breeze. I cannot stay long, she warned. Beware the barker's call and the shadows that watch. You are not alone, but trust is a scarce currency here. Evelyn reached out instinctively, but Mara's hand slipped through hers like vapor.
Wait!
Remember, Mara's voice faded with the wind. The curse is not just in the place, but in the blood. To break free, you must confront what you fear most yourself. And with that, Mara dissolved into the swirling mist, leaving Evelyn standing alone beneath the warped canopy of a carousel whose faded horses seemed to watch her with glassy, eternal eyes. The silence that followed was thick and profound, broken only by the distant, hollow creak of a rusted Ferris wheel turning in the night. Evelyn's heart pounded fiercely, her mind racing with Mara's cryptic words. She felt a strange mixture of comfort and dread, comfort in the knowledge that she was not utterly isolated, dread in the realization of the battle yet to come. She bent down, her fingers brushing against the cold, cracked wood of the carousel's platform. The flickering lights above cast long, dancing shadows, and Evelyn felt the carnival's pulse thrum beneath her skin, a heartbeat of cursed joy and inherited terror. As she straightened, she caught sight of a faded poster fluttering nearby, the edges torn and stained with time. Her own name stared back at her, bold and unyielding, a chilling herald of her fate. The carnival had called her, and now she stood at the threshold of a nightmare that reached far beyond the physical. Evelyn inhaled deeply, the cold night air filling her lungs. She would not run, not yet. The legacy was hers to face the flickering candlelight of hope, and the suffocating shadows of fear intertwined in a dance as old as the carnival itself. Ahead, the carnival beckoned with twisted smiles and broken promises. Somewhere in the murk and madness, the answers waited, and so did the ringmaster, lurking behind his cracked porcelain mask, watching, always watching. With a final glance toward the fading mist where Mara had vanished, Evelyn squared her shoulders and stepped forward, the flickering candlelight of courage sparking within her heart. The carnival's dark symphony was far from over, and she was its reluctant, yet defiant, new player. The air inside the dilapidated trailer was thick with the scent of dust and forgotten years. Evelyn Gray crouched low on the creaking wooden floorboards, her fingers trembling slightly as they sifted through the yellowed photographs and brittle letters scattered around her. Each piece of memorabilia was a fragment of a past she had only glimpsed in half-remembered stories and cryptic warnings passed down by her grandmother, Edith Gray. The dim, fading light from the cracked window painted long shadows that danced ominously on the peeling walls, as if the very space around her was breathing with the weight of untold secrets. Her heart pounded with a mixture of melancholy and curiosity. She had come to this forsaken place not only to confront the physical remnants of the carnival, but to dive headfirst into the fractured history that had shaped her family's tortured legacy. It was here, amidst the relics of a time long gone, that Evelyn hoped to find the answers that had eluded her for so many years. A faded photograph caught her eye, a black and white image of a woman with sharp features and eyes that seemed to hold 1,000 unspoken sorrows. The woman was unmistakably her grandmother. Evelyn's breath hitched as she traced the contours of the picture with a trembling finger. Edith Gray had escaped the carnival's clutches decades ago, but the shadows of that nightmarish place had never truly released her. Underneath the photograph, A leather-bound journal lay half-buried under a pile of tattered letters. Its cracked cover was worn from years of handling, and the faint smell of aged paper and leather wafted up as Evelyn gingerly opened it. The pages inside were brittle, filled with her grandmother's slanted handwriting, frantic, desperate, yet resolute. As she began to read, the world around her seemed to dissolve. The journal's words pulled her into a tapestry of memories and warnings. Edith's entries spoke of the Carnival's sinister bargains, the cursed pact that bound souls to its twisted realm, and the fleeting moments of freedom that were always snatched away too soon. Evelyn's pulse quickened with every line. The legacy of fear that had haunted her bloodline was no mere superstition. The journal revealed a chilling truth: the Carnival's curse was not just a place, but a living entity, a malignant force that fed on the terror and joy of its victims. Her grandmother's escape had been a temporary reprieve, a brief flicker of light in a numbing darkness. The curse was inherited, woven into their very blood, demanding sacrifice and submission. Evelyn's mind raced with the implications. The fragmented tales she had grown up with now took on a terrifying clarity. She was not merely a visitor to the Carnival's ghostly grounds, she was its next chosen victim, ensnared by the same legacy that had nearly destroyed her grandmother. The weight of this revelation settled heavily on her shoulders as the fading twilight outside turned the Carnival grounds into a mist-shrouded silhouette. Faint strains of distant carnival music drifted on the cold breeze, a haunting melody that seemed to mock her resolve. Yet beneath the dread, a spark of determination ignited within Evelyn. She would not be another lost soul swallowed by the Carnival's cursed joy. With the journal clutched tightly in her hands, Evelyn rose to her feet, her gaze lifting to meet the encroaching darkness. The legacy of fear was undeniable, but so was her will to break free. The past was a chain, yes, but perhaps, just perhaps, she held the key to unlocking it. As the shadows deepened and the Carnival's grotesque silhouette loomed ever closer, Evelyn whispered a vow to the night. She would confront the terror that had haunted her family for generations. She would face the Carnival's curse head-on, no matter the cost. The fragments of her grandmother's story had become her own, and the fight for freedom was only beginning. The journal slipped into her satchel with a soft rustle, the worn leather a comforting weight against her side. Outside, the mist thickened, swirling around the Carnival's decaying rides and faded tents as if alive. Evelyn stepped forward, each footfall a defiant echo in the silence. The legacy of the Carnival was a shadow that stretched long and dark, but she was determined to bring it into the light. Her breath came steady now, despite the chill that gnawed at her skin. The Carnival awaited, pulsing with cursed delight and lurking horror, and Evelyn Grey was ready to face the nightmare that had been passed down through her bloodline. The past and present were converging, and the hour of reckoning had come. The night deepened, and with it, the promise of revelations yet to come. Evelyn's journey into the heart of the Carnival's curse was far from over. But armed with the fragments of a family curse, she would step onward, into the unknown, and whatever fate awaited, she would meet it with eyes wide open.